when you have a migraine, does that mean you've had too much coffee or not enough?
I don't know, because the first thing I did after practice was go to Starbucks and it didn't kick it. So
that's not good.
I don't know if that means not enough or enough or what, but man, it came on out of nowhere. I get usually like one a month, but this is bad.
Do you get when I don't get them as much as I used to, but when I do, usually the precursor for me is a flashing in one eye that gets progressively worse, then it kind of goes away, and then the headache follows the flashing. Do you have that symptom sometimes?
No, there have been times where you just can't watch TV. I remember there was like years ago I was watching like a Detroit-LA game during a migraine, and man, that one I finally had to just turn over and put my head under the pillow. I just hope I'm not getting sick, because there's like a plague going around this team. It has gone from one person to another like the last 2 weeks, and I largely avoided it, and hopefully that's not coming. This would be a bad time of it.
So is this related? Is this the Quinn Hughes illness? Do we know what kind of illness this is? And is this what you say is going through the team?
I don't know. I mean, but everybody's had it. Like Tony, somebody didn't go on the last road trip for the Wild. Obviously, Hines was really sick in Dallas and Nashville. If you watched his pressers, one of the PR guys has been unbelievably under the weather. So it's something. But yeah, it's got like a little bit of everything. Like some people have been getting vertigo and sinus pressure where they're having trouble with, taking off and landing on the planes. And I sure hope I don't have that, because I got a flight here in about 3 hours. But I don't know. I don't know what Quinn has. I mean, I will say that something's been obvious to me that's been off with Quinn the last 3 days, because I texted somebody with the team yesterday asking if Quinn was good to go for game one, and he said yes. But I didn't see Quinn every player from the Wild was in the press box in St. Louis. Every player from the Wild was in the press box in the home finale, of the scratch players, but Quinn wasn't. And then when I saw that he didn't take part in the jersey off my back thing, you just knew that he was either sick or something else was up. And but the Wild say he's going to be good for game one, and I'll trust that until all of a sudden, if we land in Dallas and don't see him at practice tomorrow, then something's going on. But right now, I'm taking it for the word that he's just dealing with what a lot of guys on the team have been dealing with. This seems to go around always at the worst time. Well,
we're asking that question earlier. I don't have any science to back this up. It's more anecdotal. But over the years, my sense of it is that things seem to go through hockey teams more than that of locker rooms of other sports. If that's true, do we know? Is there a theory to that, or have you ever written anything about that, or figured out what that could be, or is that nonsense?
I don't know. I mean, when COVID was going on, it was crazy. How quickly it just spread. Throughout the team. The year that they were coming back. And I do think it's because this is such a physical, fast sport on the ice that it was going it was like clockwork. I mean, I remember this vividly. If the Wild played LA, all of a sudden LA had it. If the LA played St. Louis, then St. Louis had it.
Yeah.
And we saw that with the mumps too. Remember the Wild had the mumps.
Yes.
It was like, we accused St. Louis of being kind of ground zero for it. They accused Anaheim, and Minnesota and St. Louis started that season in Anaheim, if you remember correctly. When the mumps was going around, they were there, back to back. So they both accused the Anaheim Ducks, and then it was just that. But in the locker room, it's just a cesspool. I mean, it's just, you got wet, disgusting equipment. These guys are close. There's a reason why after any game or practice, you see the equipment trainers going around with a disinfected tool and just, start spraying the lockers and things like that. So I don't know if, obviously, as well as I do that I've covered this sport almost my entire career. So it does seem like in hockey, it's just almost worse to me than the other sports. But I just think it's the nature of the beast. These guys are on the same buses. They travel together. They're with each other all the time. They're in these disgusting locker rooms and all that stuff. And I just think it goes, I mean, it is, it is amazing in hockey how it just feels like once there's one illness, it just goes over and over and over again. So we'll see. I mean, as far as I know that they said today that Quinn was going to be on the flight, and hopefully he's masked up because they don't need going into the playoffs just to be going around the team.
That's what I said earlier. I think you should take him on a separate flight to be sure. But then again, he's going to end up together anyway.
747 in DFW.
Let's say, yeah, that's it.
I go tomorrow morning.
I assume the Wild know who will be starting in nets for Game 1. I assume you know, too. There's been no official announcement. Are you willing to reveal that to us today?
No, I really don't know. I mean, I have my assumptions that it's Gus, because Bill Guerin was, on with your buddy Chad a couple days ago, and he said on there that he knew who was starting Game 1, and that was before the Anaheim game. And if he knew who was starting Game 1, it was obvious Gus, right? I mean, they didn't decide before that Anaheim game that Wally's starting, so it had to be Gus. The question is, did anything change with the Anaheim game?
Right.
That would be my only thing, is because Gus was, so bad in St. Louis and behind essentially the same exact lineup against a team that had something to play for, while he was so good in the season finale. So that would be my only thing. I still sense that they're just going to go with Gus for Game 1 with a very, very short leash. But this is a huge decision, right? Because, you don't get a lot of chances in the playoffs, and the Wild have had dilemmas in previous postseasons. Obviously, the one in 2022 is the biggest one, where Cam Talbot had a 15-game point streak to end the season, and they still started Flower, and obviously that didn't go well. So, I just think that they feel that the body of work all season long. I mean, it's not like Gus has been bad. He's just been bad recently. The problem is that body of work over a long season means nothing if all of a sudden you're in a major funk and you're going to go into Game 1. And I just thought what was so disconcerting, was to see Gus's play in Dallas the other night. Let's just discount the way he played in St. Louis. The game in Dallas where you outplay a team to that degree.
Correct.
And scored 3 power play goals, and all the metrics say that you should have won that game in a rout, and then you lose. It's just a tough pill to swallow, so I still think they start him. But I will say, if they start Wallstedt, I think they have definitely changed their mind, because every sense that I've gotten in the last couple days, at least before the season finale, I should say, is that Gus was going to start Game 1 with a short leash.
Weren't we up? We were up 3-1 and 4-3 in that game, right? Against the Sharks.
Yeah, and
got to win that game.
It's not like he gave up terrible goals, but he was just like sloppy, and his lack of competing to get to the top of the crease and attack. Even the 5th goal, he couldn't see a thing, but he skated himself right into the screen and almost, it felt to me, gave up on the play and allowed Robertson to change his angle and score. I thought the second goal by Blackwell was a terrible goal. And then the one that really bothered me was the Cameron Hughes first NHL goal, where he just sloppily played the entry and then didn't read it well. And then, really could have cut that puck off before hitting the post. Then it hits the post, and then it just goes right back to Hughes, and he was just sort of, clumsy there. And so I didn't like his demeanor after the game when I was questioning him. He almost seemed, I don't want to say indifferent, almost like in a depression, because I think he realized how well they played that game and the fact that they should have won. And I sensed the tension in the room. And then in St. Louis, it was almost defiance afterwards, where he was, every excuse in the book. We weren't playing structured. We weren't blocking shots. This game meant nothing. They were trying to have fun. But then the next night, 24 hours later, Wallstedt plays behind the same lineup against a motivated team and was just much, much better. So I just haven't loved his demeanor at all. And even today, when we were questioning Gus, he just seemed uncomfortable with all the questions. And, I don't know what he expects. I mean, this is pro sports here. You have the young goalie that's, given up 2 goals or fewer in 8 of his last 9 starts. And you have the veteran goalie who's given up 4 goals or more in 5 of his last 6. That's a storyline when you're going into the playoffs. It's not just something that you're going to, especially when you feel like you have the best team in franchise history and have a chance to win a round for the first time in a decade. You can't, it would be just a shame if one of their biggest strengths all year long, where this team led the league in save percentage. It would be just a shame if all of a sudden, goaltending turned out to be their biggest demise.
My text exchange with Guerin yesterday, I think I can use this. There's really nothing that I think will bother him about me repeating it. I wrote, "Do you care who I believe should start game one?" And Guerin, not surprisingly, replied, "No, but you can give me your opinion." And I did. I said, I didn't want to go this way because it's often knee-jerk. But I think the goalies themselves have made the decision for you. Has to be the kid. His reply was what you would expect. We shall see. I called that a vanilla answer, and he said very, almost full vanilla bean. So I honestly do, because I tend to not want to go the way that the public does, because sometimes it does feel like you're prisoner of the moment. You go, no, you got to think bigger picture than that. You can't overreact. But I really do think it has reached a point where no matter how hard you want to cling to the larger body of work, you say, no, the weight of this now is too great. In fairness to the team, I got to reverse it. And by the way, it might not work. Who knows? But I got to take my best shot at it. So
you're almost less second guess, in my opinion, if you start with Wallstedt than if you start Gus. Because if they lose game one and you get shelled, then it's just like, well, all the evidence was there that he was not on top of his game and not playing a confident position at this point. Where Wallstedt, there's a swagger about him right now. He's played great against playoff teams. I know they're worried. I mean, look, it's Stanley Cup playoffs, a different animal.
Sure.
You're playing against a great, great team. You're starting on the road. The only start he's ever had in that building was his NHL debut, and they lost 7-2 that night. So there's a lot of reasons why you go with Gus. Again, he's had a really good year. And the other thing is look, he's only played 11 playoff games, so it's not like he's, Grant Fuhr out there. But he also has played, he played a really good game one there, in 2023, double overtime, 51 saves that night. Last year they lost game one in Vegas, but it was hardly his fault.
Right.
And then he had a really good, a pretty good series.
True.
So I think there's plenty of reasons to go with Gus. And, the one thing I'll just say is I think the leash is going to be short. Like, he almost has to win game one to get
no question.
So, I just think that Wallstedt has put himself in position here where there's a lot of confidence with the team in front of him. I will say it is kind of interesting if you look at it, like Wallstedt, if you look at his numbers, the last 10 games that he's played, 9 starts, he should be 9-0, but he's gotten almost no run support, so to speak, where it does seem like they score in front of Gus. So we'll see how it goes. Again, I do think it's Gus. I don't think it's I don't think it's the biggest criminal move ever to go with a goalie like Gus. But obviously there's going to be a lot of second guessing if they lose.
The fact that wasn't Wallstedt's first start like awful against Dallas, that's not going to have any impact now. Do you think that would have any impact on their thinking?
That was 3 years ago.
Exactly.
And even though he's a rookie, that was 3 seasons ago.
Right.
And remember, that was, they set him up to fail back to back.
Yes.
One of the two goalies was hurt and played, and then the other goalie played the night before. There were a ton of call-ups in that game, if I remember correctly. I didn't cover that game, but Joe Smith, I believe Joe Smith did for us. And, so and that was such a, I remember the story of that game is on the flight back. It was the second of a back-to-back and they call this kid up from the minors. And he was just coming off a groin injury too, if I remember correctly. So they were kind of in a desperate situation where they had to play him. And I remember Hines on the back of the plane, on the flight home, went to the back of the plane to talk to Wally and try to lift his spirits and almost tell him, look, this was our fault, not yours. So that was 3 years ago. It's a different animal now, but it is interesting how they have not ever given him a game in Dallas since. And, you almost wish that they did, right? Just so we experienced that again and got that, exercise those demons, so to speak. And, but again, he's such a different goalie now. He's had a really quality season. And, let's put it this way. I mean, if the Wild are going to get to where they want to go to and, in 2 months, you're probably going to need at some point both goaltenders, regardless of who starts game one.
Chris writes, Guerin said he gave his opinion on which goalie should start. Doesn't that really mean he's the one deciding, not Hines? Seems like an awkward spot for a coach if he disagrees.
No, I mean, look, I mean, they have collaborative efforts when they meet, the GMs in there a lot of times. I mean, frankly, whoever starts game one is probably Freddie Shabbat, the goalie coach, who got the final decision. I can guarantee you. I think he really is genuinely just giving his opinion. I don't think he's I don't disagree with the genesis of the texter and what he's saying, because obviously, if you defy Guerin in that situation and you lose, it's going to look bad on you. But I really do think it's a collaborative effort. And, Billy Guerin doesn't claim to be a goalie expert. I think Freddie Shabbat does, though. And I think that has a lot of weight. And that's also why I think, like to your point, I think it's very clear in your text exchange with Billy yesterday that he probably doesn't agree with you.
Yes.
What your thing was. Yeah. But I think that 3 or 4 days ago, he definitely didn't. Mm-hmm. And now the question is, did that Anaheim game change anything? Because there was a suaveness to the way that Wally played that game, just that showed that to me that he is really in a great state of mind right now. Just that one save where he bats the puck into his glove out of midair. That had a Roberto Luongo feel to it with that play. And then on the one sprawl to the net where the puck hits the moorings and he robbed a 40-goal scorer in Gauthier. I mean, that just shows me a goalie that right now is feeling good. Mm-hmm. And so that would be my only thing.
I agree.
Like, I've changed my mind. Like 3 days ago, I thought that Gus should start.
Me too.
And after watching that game against Anaheim and seeing and questioning Gus now 3 times in the last week, one after the St. Louis game, one after the Dallas game, and then obviously today, I just have changed my mind. I just don't like his demeanor, not just in the net right now, but afterwards. He seems like he's in a fragile state. And as we know with goaltending, it's such a fragile position, and you're such alone on an island that I think there's a pressure by putting him in there right now that if he flounders, it could have lasting effects throughout the rest of the postseason.
Give me a Stars injury update, because that certainly should not be underrated as a storyline here going in.
Yeah. So I didn't see yesterday's game. I was doing a podcast during it, but Sam Steele and Radek Faksa were supposed to be on their way back. I didn't see if they actually did play yesterday. But Rupe Hintz is going to miss the first couple games of the series and maybe longer. He had a setback on his injury. He was hit by McKinnon about a month ago and had another setback. And he's had a lot of injuries the last 3 years, and he's such a play driver for that team that would be a huge, huge blow. The other one is Miro Heiskanen. I mean, he is as good a defenseman as there is in the league. I'm going to do my ballot on the plane down to Dallas today, but he's somebody that's definitely going to most likely going to be in my top 5 for Norris. And he hurt his knee. It looked like a knee injury to me on a very clean check by Ryan Hartman in the last meeting. And if it's an MCL, even if he plays the first couple games, he's clearly not going to be 100%, and that would have huge impact on the series. I mean, look, they have a really good blue line. Esa Lindell's is underrated as like a Jonas Brodin, and Thomas Harley's a star in the making, I think. But Miro Heiskanen is as good as it gets in the NHL. And he's essentially a different player, but he's essentially like their Quinn Hughes. And if he is not playing in games 1 or 2, or is, frankly on one knee, that would be a huge, huge blow to the Stars.
Let's leave the goaltending aside for a moment. As hard as that is to do in hockey, it's almost impossible. But other things have to happen in front of the goaltender. So from the Wild's perspective, to give themselves a chance to win, to actually not just compete in this series, but win this series, what else? What else matters or will matter?
Discipline. I mean, it really is. Like, play a physical game, but find that fine line to hit on time, to not take stupid penalties. That's what killed them in 2023. They lost that series. They outplayed the Stars in my eyes at even strength that series. Their power play and their penalty kill were absolutely garbage that series. And when your penalty kill is garbage, and you're becoming unglued on a constant basis, it doesn't leave a recipe for success. And I just felt that series, they became unglued way too often. It was masterful, but Pete DeBoer did almost a gamesmanship thing and trying to get into the referees' ears on how undisciplined the Wild were and all that type of stuff. And then Dean tried to combat that by calling them a bunch of divers, and it just never worked. And This year, really the last 2 years, the Wild have been one of the most disciplined teams in the NHL. They've been shorthanded the second or third fewest times in the Western Conference this year. And really, they were top 2 in the league for pretty much the entire year until basically the last couple of weeks, where they've taken a little too many penalties. And now, while their penalty kill has been really, really good the second half of the season, the only power play that's better than the Wild in the Western Conference is the Dallas Stars. The Dallas Stars were second in the league, the Wild were third in the league, and they can light you up on the power play. So I think it's just really, really important that especially the Folignos, just play a smart game. That game in in Dallas the other day turned when, after the second goal, Nick Foligno essentially got goaded into a retaliatory penalty with Colin Blackwell when he was celebrating a goal, and he went back at Foligno, and Foligno retaliated. And then Marcus lost his mind, and they wound up with a double minor because of it. And even though the Wild killed it off, it just seemed to turn everything in that game. And I think I said this to PA today or on my podcast. Like, if I was Dallas that game, I would have noticed right away that if you go after Nick Foligno, that Marcus becomes unglued. It happened twice in that game. Once when me and Bichelle put Nick through the cage and Marcus started punching everybody. And then one on that instance where Marcus went to town on everybody. And so that, I actually asked John Hines off camera today, I'm like, do you think that maybe you should have Nick Foligno on the third line and have a fourth line of Trennan, McCarron, and Marcus Foligno just to get Marcus and Nick to not be on that line and risk Marcus losing his mind?
Yeah.
And
what did he say?
Said it's something we've talked about, but he said it's something we've talked about. It's something that I'm going to talk to Marcus about. But I just think that if I was the Dallas Stars, I would have noticed that right away, and that would be my tack right now for the rest of the series. Go after Nick, because Marcus won't be able to handle it just because of his brother. Now, Marcus is quick to defend anybody on the team, but it was clear it was because they were going after his brother that game. So anyway, but to get back to my original point, the Wild, they've been so disciplined this year that they've got to figure out a way to continue that into this series. And if they do and keep off the penalty kill, as good as their PK has been, the reality is that Dallas has such a potent power play that you just don't want to get into that game with them. I love the Wild's power play against Dallas. I think Dallas has to basically say the same thing. Like the Wild lit them up with 3 power play goals the other day. And so they've got to be as careful as well. So if this thing is a 5-on-5 game, I give the Wild a lot of chance.
It's such an important point, though. The discipline part of it. It really is. It gets. I think people forget about it sometimes, or they don't spend enough time on that aspect of it, because it's not spectacular stuff. It's not dazzling stuff, but it sometimes, as you say, opens the door for the other team to retake control of the game. It's just vital. Yeah. It's crucial.
And that's what happened that game, is that the Wild's PK was actually good against the Stars, and they killed that one penalty that Nick, he got a double minor, but he should have gotten a minor, and the referee should have given Marcus a minor. But I think the referees got confused. I didn't realize it was Marcus going to town and gave them both, gave to Nick, which was hilarious, actually. But to that point, it turned everything. Like the Wild essentially, now look, Dallas just scored to make it 3-2. So it's not like that was the big momentum changer, but everything in that game changed at that point. And it just, they've just got to be smarter. Bogosian's a big one too right now. Like he practiced today, but it just feels like Middleton and Petrie in that game against Dallas were not very good together. And if Middleton and Petrie are going to be your third pair going into that, that is going to be a problem. So, they lost that game in Dallas because of that third pair and Gustafson. So that would be a big thing. The other thing, to my point on playing the Folignos together, is as good as the Folignos have been with McCarron, that game in Dallas, they were on the ice for 3 goals. And so, I don't know. If it were me and I felt the need to play Nick, which I think they do, I would consider having Nick on a line with Yurov and Tarasenko and have a Trenyan, McCarron, Foligno line and separate them and maybe switch things up in that capacity. Because right now it looks like Bobby Brink's going to start in the press box. So we'll see what happens in practice tomorrow, but that's the way it looked today.
Good luck on the migraine. Safe travels. I know you're about to get on the Big Bird to head to Dallas, Texas for Game 1 tomorrow on the Fan. 4:30 is when it begins. Central Time, pregame show. I think should be at least a half hour long. Fallness might mail it in at 4:15. I have no idea at this point whether that's even established.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what he tends to do.
What do you think of the conflict between the Wolves and the Wild? You know what concerns me is
what's that?
Is the games 3 and 4. Like, do they?
Yeah.
When they're here in Minnesota, is that conflict? So.
Well,
it kind of stinks with the 2 afternoon games on Saturday.
That's the problem. Both teams had a chance to have home ice and didn't do it. I mean, the Wolves messed around with it all year. They are definitely a lower seed than they should be, and the Wild had a chance to get back into it. So, yeah, that is a bit of a problem. We don't know yet what day Game 2 is going to be for the Wild Stars. Is that correct?
No, but I think for the Wild it'll be Monday.
Monday? Yeah, probably Monday.
That's what I assume. I hope so, because I'm flying home Tuesday, so I'll have to quickly scramble.
There you go.
So, you think John's going to fly? John Krasinski is going to fly to the right city? That's the big one.
No, I think he will. I'm not exactly sure. That's true. That's a really.
He should go through Eau Claire just to do it, like he had to for the Houston series.
That's not a bad idea.
It should be tradition.
That's a great thought.
Yeah. Wasn't that where he flew to Milwaukee to get to Texas or some weird?
There was some weird. Yeah. Well, he's trying to save the company money.
I thought it was weather, and I'm almost positive he had to go to Eau Claire. I'm almost positive it was.
I thought it was Milwaukee.
It was Eau Claire, and then he got stuck there and had to watch the game from like a.
Well, the reason why that made no sense was that he was leaving from Minnie, and it was like weather here, and it's like if you got to connect there, you're gonna have to get back here to connect. It was some weird thing like that where I'm like, how did you even think this was going to work?
Well, because he's cutting it too close. That's the problem. You got to, that's the thing. And so
he's not a seasoned traveler like you.
Seasoned travelers.
The Associated Press. He was just locked in for years in Minnesota. He never had to travel.
He didn't even know what it's like.
That's a great point. Great point.
Yeah. All right. On that note, we'll let you go. Safe travels, as I said. We'll be in touch. Thanks, Russo.
Yep. See you guys.
Russo Radio helping us out as only he can do, heading to Dallas very, very shortly. Game 1, as we said, on Saturday. Well, really both teams. The Wolves scheduled for 2:30 start. That'll be on the Timberwolves channel. And then a 4:30 start for the Wild on Saturday against the Stars. And that game will be on FM 100.3, The Fan, as well. Bottom of the hour break. Don't forget, Dr. Dan's inbox in about an hour. You can still email Guardsy, jg@kfan.com. We got Top 5 at 5 yet to get to. How about a little news on the march when we return? In this one from Chris, the Foligno brothers need to be booted from the team if they do any stupid-ass penalties this series. I like the message. I might be a little bit harsh, but
you know what?
It's such an important part of this thing, and let's face it, with the Foligno we already had, that's been an issue from time to time, right? We all know what he adds and what we think the intangibles and the connector stuff and all that, but you can't. We're probably the best team we've had, right? But we're still not the dominant kind of team that can open the door to the other team by not playing smart. We have to play smart. And that will be one of the, I think, crucial points in determining how this thing goes. I mean, goaltending is always at the top of the list, but this is not, in the case of the Wild, I don't think this is very far behind. Inbox at 5. I should say the Dr. Dan's inbox will be at 5:30. And as I mentioned, if you want to get in on the fun, email Guardsy, jg@kfan.com.
News on the march.
Item number 1 is local. A U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent has been charged with assault over alleged actions during Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota. A rare instance, writes the Wall Street Journal, of an ICE agent facing criminal charges for actions related to their work. Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty said today that Gregory Donnell Morgan Jr. was facing 2 counts of second-degree assault over a Feb 5 incident in which he allegedly pointed his gun at a motorist and passenger on a highway. There is a nationwide warrant out, I should say, for Morgan's arrest, Moriarty said. She also said it is the first time a federal agent has been criminally charged for their conduct during Operation Metro Surge. Neither ICE nor the Department of Homeland Security immediately responded to a request for comment. Move is a rare effort to prosecute a federal agent for actions related to their official duties. Officials in several states that saw a massive influx of federal agents said they would investigate possible violations of law, but federal agents have a swath of legal protections that can make it difficult to convict them. The decision is likely to inflame tensions between the feds and officials in Minnesota. Not surprising there. The quote from Moriarty, they've indicated they would not be happy with something of that nature if federal agents were to be charged. Not a concern of ours, nor should it be if you have the goods and you have the if you have a case that gives you a chance for success as well. And I might have more faith if it was someone other than Moriarty who was bringing these charges. That's an old story on this program, but the details of the case are troubling in terms of the way when it comes to the conduct of the individual. My concern with Mary Moriarty has been, as we laid out a long time ago on a couple of other cases having nothing to do with ICE, is in her eagerness to hold law enforcement of various sorts responsible. Does she let the case come to her, or does she try to force a case in which there's not the evidence necessary? And what, of course, immediately comes to mind is the disaster regarding the Londrigan prosecution. We shall see where it indeed goes in this particular case. That's item number one. Item two, are you a big Boundary Waters guy? You classify yourself as a big Boundary Waters guy?
I respect the Boundary Waters.
But you don't fear it.
I don't fear
or them. The U.S. Senate approved a resolution to end a ban on mining during the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in northern Minnesota. Twin Metals Minnesota, a subsidiary of Chilean-based mining giant Antofagasta, has proposed to mine for copper, nickel, cobalt, and other critical minerals along Birch Lake, south of Ely, and within the watershed of the Boundary Waters, though not directly within the federally protected wilderness area zone, I should say. This is via StarTribune.com. Even with passage of the resolution, any mine along Birch Lake would still need to clear federal and state permitting hurdles and could be years, possibly even decades away. Environmental groups such as Save the Boundary Waters have for months opposed the bill and knocked on doors on Capitol Hill. On April 15, they rallied supporters in Minnesota and across the country, drawing celebrity social media posts from Parks and Rec actor Nick, is it pronounced Offerman, who said copper nickel mining near the BWCAW would turn the wilderness into a poisoned wasteland. U.S. House Rep Pete Stauber, who represents northeastern Minnesota and introduced the resolution to end the mining ban, took to Twitter to announce what he called a major victory for America and Minnesota's 8th congressional district. It is also worth noting, did I print what I needed here? Yeah, this I thought was an interesting wrinkle, because this story is going to get a lot of attention locally and nationally. Two Republicans, Senators Susan Collins and Tom Tillis, voted against the measure. Tillis, like Collins, cautioned against the procedure used to advance the vote. It's a precedent that I think our Republican colleagues are going to regret, Tillis said in an interview on Capitol Hill after his no vote. I'm telling you, if you take a look at this policy space, there are far more risks for Republicans having issues against this than we would use against Democrats for liberal policy, Tillis added, referring to use of the Congressional Review Act used for future measures. The text line is open, 64686. The Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open at 64686 on either of those subjects. Item number 3, this is international in nature and probably affects fewer people, but the headline, I'll grant, got my attention. Here it is. Did medical neglect kill soccer hero Maradona? A criminal trial seeks answers. Do you know about this story?
I don't think I do.
I knew nothing about it until today. For almost 6 years, Argentines have demanded the truth about the mysterious death of their tragic national hero, Diego Maradona, among the greatest soccer players the world has indeed ever seen. And now prosecutors say they have an answer and are putting their evidence to the test this week in a trial, accusing Maradona's medical team of, quote, simple homicide with eventual intent.
Jeez.
Meaning that their actions contributed to his death. There are 7 defendants in this case, including his doctor and nurses and a psychiatrist. And they face as many as 25 years in prison. This goes all the way back. This goes back 5-6 years. Prosecutors allege that the medical team ignored significant warning signs as his health deteriorated in late 2020, and they have described the house where he was recovering from brain surgery as a theater of horrors. The case has gripped Argentina, with some of his fans holding up signs outside of the courtroom demanding justice for God, a reference to Maradona's status as a demigod. Newspapers and television programs have published pretty much every salacious detail. Now, he died, I think, November 25, 2020, by what is called a heart attack, right? But before his death, according to this story, Maradona's belly had swollen like a beach ball, and his heart was covered in fat and blood clots. In his final hours, he was likely in agony. A medical board convened by prosecutors concluded. And they found numerous problems, they say, with Maradona's home care, from the location of his room to overly salty meals. The board said there was no defibrillator or oxygen tank in case of an emergency. The defendants deny wrongdoing. They say they did their best to help a difficult patient who often resisted treatment and refused to see them. This is the first I know about this case. And what struck me about it from afar is this emotion because of the emotional attachment the entire country has to this legendary soccer figure and frustration? Or is there a significant, real legal basis here to go after pretty much everybody in his medical team? How often does this even happen? I don't know. Because this isn't a lawsuit, right? This is to prosecute them to go to, presumably, to go to prison.
Right.
In many cases. And I need to know a lot more about his own resistance to treatment. I mean, aren't there limits to what a medical team can do if they don't have the cooperation of the patient, the individual in question? So I don't know. Maybe we have people in the soccer community who know this story better than I do and can speak to, because this almost feels like it's a made-for-TV movie. Like these folks all plotted against him to basically hasten his demise. But we've all, I think, know of circumstances, situations where the patient himself or herself can make things challenging, right? I'm not saying doctors are infallible.
Right.
But I don't know. It just strikes me here is how much of this is emotion, how much of this is really a solid case, or is this a Mary Moriarty kind of a case?
60 years old, right? Did I do that math right?
Yeah, that's true. No question about that.
It's crazy. All these years later, people are looking back into it.
Yes, that's true.
That's the thing. Like it's a cold case almost. Like whatever happened to Maradona? Let's go back in.
I don't know if is any of this going to be germane in the courtroom? Because in the story, this is a Wall Street Journal piece again. Argentina's golden boy had a life full of scandals. He had links to the Camorra crime syndicate and befriended leftist Latin American dictators, briefly jailed for drug possession, expelled from the 1994 World Cup, and during a 2000 vacation in Uruguay, Maradona suffered a near-fatal heart failure because of a cocaine overdose.
Jeez.
7 years later, he was also treated for alcohol abuse.
So he lived his life. He lived hard.
He did. And then your question is, well, how much does some of this medical stuff impact how, again, what ended up leading to his demise? Was it bad treatment, or was it also his own history that might have had something to do with it? He also apparently His fragile health took a turn for the worse in March 2020 as the COVID-19 pandemic erupted. Stuck at home, he drank heavily, took sleeping pills, sometimes 10 a night, according to a podcast called Last Days of Maradona, a podcast.
Yeah, they could sell it.
That reviewed thousands of voice and text messages from Maradona's medical team and other associates that were seized by prosecutors. This fascinates me. And maybe I'm forgetting about some cases, some famous cases involving celebrities, whether you're talking about athletes or other, areas of celebrity.
Usually, it's if they're just
down that road,
providing, like with Prince, who's giving Prince the fentanyl?
And wasn't
Matthew
there
Perry.
Well, Michael Jackson? It was
Michael Jackson. Propanol,
Propofol, or something, or something like that. Yeah.
But that's how that stuff happens, right? Is how are they getting access to all these drugs? It's not how are they not taking care of the individual as best they can. We need to pause, by the way.
Oh, did I get? Oh, you're right. I forgot. We had Russo late. I'm sorry, my bad. I would have definitely broken earlier. We'll break now. There's one other item in here that got my attention. He threw a nurse out of the house, locked himself in his room, and said he didn't want to see anybody. I mean, again, how much did he unfortunately, tragically commit or contribute to his own demise as well? News on the March. We'll continue with a couple of other items and some texts when we come back. Coming up in just a couple of minutes, and as we said, the inbox will be opened at 5:30. I'm hoping we'll get plenty regarding the Wild opening in the playoffs, the Wolves, but they don't have to be limited to either of those subjects at all. Let's get to some texts here reacting to several of our News on the March stories. Wilderness in the valuable asset for our country is a valuable asset for our country. Not only is it extremely limited, it's under pressure at all times by development. True wilderness is valuable for outdoor recreation and to our American tradition of hunting and fishing. These minerals will always be underground and an asset to our country. Using them now and having a foreign corporation profit from it seems very short-sighted. Dan, for somebody who has experienced addiction issues firsthand, it is certainly possible that a patient would decline or avoid medical treatment. Stauber sold out his backyard as a resident and admitted enthusiast of the BWCA and a middle-of-the-road guy. This sickens me. I think if you use as much coke as Maradona did, you're going to die a little or a lot early. Good luck getting a fair trial for them in Argentina. It's an interesting question there.
Yeah, they may have to move the venue.
Republican Senate is going to lift the most toxic form of mining next to the boundary water so a foreign corporation, Chilean, can pay 200 people minimum wage, and they take in billions. Text line is open, but you never respond to the subject that I'm responding to. What subject is that? That's 60. Well, it's the subject of Mary Moriarty. We did respond. I think I've made my position fairly clear. I am firmly in the camp that wants individuals from ICE who crossed the line and were involved in illegal activity while they were here, and they most assuredly did. Even, let's be honest, the administration would not acknowledge that, but they, in effect, admitted to it by pulling out of here the way they did with their tail between their legs. I want those individuals prosecuted potentially to the fullest extent of the law. I just don't. I'd feel more comfortable about it if, let's say, an Andy Luger was doing the prosecuting than a Mary Moriarty. Sorry, I just there's new leadership needed in that position. Last I checked, she's not running again. She's made that clear unless there's going to be any kind of change late, an announcement there. But she obviously is still in the position. I just don't have a lot of. I don't think she has. established a lot of trust. If you are someone who wants to follow the story rather than just be sort of a part of an agenda, is the way I would indeed look at it. What was the other? There was one other texter that there's no doubt Maradona was a swine, hedonistic swine who was generally unpleasant to all people around him, despite being a beloved, godlike sports hero to his fans. The question is, was it his health or his personality that finally caught up with him? I don't know. There's obviously a hell of a backstory here, and a lot of it potentially has already been told. But this does fall into the classification of when an athlete is elevated to godlike status.
As a player and a coach.
He defines that, yeah. By definition, you're allowed to get away with more. More is tolerated. It's not the way it should be, but it's the way we've seen to varying degrees in various ways it has happened over and over again. So we'll see. It's a story worthy, I think, of our following it to see indeed where it would go, and maybe we even eventually get somebody on related to it. Maybe Friday we talk about it with Lavelle. Maybe Lavelle's got some insight. Big Maradona guy, isn't he?
Well, he's our soccer expert.
He's as close as we're going to get at this point, that's for sure. Top 5 at 5 will include
some portal stuff for both Gopher basketball teams. The play-in tournament was pure electricity last night, and the Twins are back in action tonight.